In this video, I'm going to break down everything you need to know about API, Active Pharmaceutical Ingredients, the powders that are used to produce peptides and other medications. Look, most people have no idea what makes product pharma-grade versus research grade, and how sourcing the wrong product could jeopardize patient safety and lead to massive legal problems. So if you're a medical provider, a pharmacy owner, or just a peptide enthusiast, buckle up because we're about to adventure into the peptide supply chain. Nearly all API that enters into the United States originates from China or India, and that's because it's simply not profitable for US-based manufacturers to synthesize API. Because of this, my team exclusively works with Chinese manufacturers. We've put boots on the ground and toured the facilities we source from, verifying their processes and certifications, because as a licensed wholesaler, there's a lot at stake. Now, here's how the Chinese API market actually works. There are essentially three classifications. Number 1, cGMP, FDA registered, and FDA inspected. Number 2, cGMP certified, FDA registered, but not FDA inspected. And number 3, not cGMP, not FDA registered, and not FDA inspected. The first two are regulated and produce pharma-grade API. The third is unregulated, producing research-grade API. To simplify this, you either have a medication or you have a chemical. Now, as you probably know, the FDA has given pharmacies and CDMOs permission to produce a select number of peptides. But there are many operators out there that don't necessarily follow those rules and produce a wide variety of peptides anyway. So hypothetically, if a pharmacy wanted to buy API for something like BPC 157, MOTC, or CJC 1295, here's what they need to know. In China, it's technically illegal for an API manufacturer to produce the peptides that I just mentioned. If a cGMP, FDA-registered facility gets inspected and is found to be producing those peptides, the owners will literally get thrown in jail. So how is it that some licensed wholesalers are able to source and sell these APIs? Let me explain. In China, you can build an API manufacturing facility and register with the FDA without needing an immediate inspection. Typically, after registration, there's a 3-year window before the facility requires an FDA inspection. So what a lot of API manufacturers do is they open a cGMP FDA-registered facility and produce all types of peptides during that 3-year window. Inevitably, when an inspection comes due, they decline. They close up shop and they open another facility following the same framework. This cycle continues to repeat, and it's how a lot of API flowing into US pharmacies right now is being produced. Now, not all API manufacturers operate this way. There are facilities like Genahope that are cGMP certified, FDA registered, and FDA inspected. They only produce approved medications and they really won't venture outside of that. Our team is actually the largest buyer of Genahope product in the world. We move a significant number of kilos of semaglutide and tirzepatide to pharmacies that you've likely heard of. The relationship we have with Genahope and other manufacturers didn't happen by accident. It's the result of years of vetting, putting boots on the ground, and building trust with executive teams. Look, because of our buying power and our direct relationships, we have unbeatable prices on pharma-grade API. So here's where it gets even more interesting. It looks like the FDA is going to reclassify quite a few peptides in the near future, moving them from the restricted list into full compounding eligibility, which means pharmacies will be able to produce more peptides without issue. But most people don't realize that just because a peptide gets reclassified in the US and it's compliant for pharmacies to compound here, doesn't mean the same situation automatically carries over into China. There are different legal frameworks, different regulatory bodies. So in the near future, there's going to be massive demand for API that's legal in the US, but technically illegal to produce in China. The main box we need to check is always sourcing from an FDA-registered facility. The FDA inspection is nice, but it is not required to legitimize the product. Now, unfortunately, not all API wholesalers operate with integrity. If you saw what we see on a daily basis, you would be blown away. It's incredibly shady. There are wholesalers out there selling counterfeit product with fabricated COAs, documents that look legitimate on the surface, but don't reflect what's actually in the powders. Other wholesalers are selling repackaged or relabeled product, API that's been chopped up, blended, or passed through multiple hands with no traceability back to the original manufacturer. I've talked with many pharmacy owners that are just trying to chase the lowest possible price on API, which oftentimes leads to serious problems. Low quality API can cause compounded medications to gel, clump, cloud, and fail third-party testing, which means that product has to get thrown in the trash, resulting in a financial loss and a massive headache. Look, these aren't hypothetical scenarios. We've seen all of it firsthand, and there's public documentation to prove it. In December 2025, the FDA issued a formal warning letter to a Florida-based API wholesaler called Darmerica. Here's what the FDA found. It is shocking. 1. Their supplier qualification system was a complete failure. Darmerica was sourcing API from manufacturers that gave inconsistent answers about their inspection history on vendor surveys. In one case, a supplier claimed an FDA inspection resulted in a satisfactory outcome. The inspection never even happened. Darmerica caught the inconsistency and requalified the supplier anyway. 2. They distributed contaminated product and didn't even tell their customers. A lot of API had black chunks in it. 2 customers complained. Darmerica returned the remaining inventory to the manufacturer, but never contacted the other customers who already received the same lot. The manufacturer's response was wild. They told Darmerica to instruct customers to manually remove the particles. Darmerica just accepted that answer. 3. They released API for distribution before testing was even complete. They shipped product out the door before their own quality reviewed it and before the COA came back from the lab. Their justification? Patients needed the medication. 4. One of their suppliers was operating out of a residential apartment. The FDA physically went to the registered address of one of Darmerica's manufacturers. They found an empty apartment. The point of contact said that the company had gone out of business the year before. Darmerica has been importing and distributing that supplier's API to pharmacies, compounding drugs for patients. 5. They were shipping GLP-1 APIs labeled as custom peptide to hide what was inside. The FDA cited this as false and misleading labeling. The company's explanation was that it was to prevent theft and to comply with export requirements. This is a licensed, FDA-registered wholesaler, not some back alley operation. A real company operating openly, and this is what was going on inside their supply chain. When people ask me why sourcing matters, why vetting matters, why it's worth paying a bit more for API that you can actually trace, this is why. So let me tell you exactly how we operate and why it matters. Our team exclusively sources API from cGMP FDA-registered facilities. Some are fully inspected, some are not, and I explained earlier why that distinction exists in the Chinese market. We do not repackage, we do not relabel, ever. Everything we sell arrives in the original manufacturer's packaging with the COA that represents that exact lot from that exact facility. No middlemen touching the powder, no labels getting swapped. What leaves the manufacturer is what arrives at the pharmacy. That matters for 2 reasons. It ensures sterility and limits downstream liability. Here's a quick look at one of our warehouses. We carry a wide range of API SKUs, semaglutide, tirzepatide, mebendazole, ivermectin, and more. If you or someone you know is building a formulary, we can support it. And because we offer full visibility into the supply chain, the manufacturer, lot, COA, chain of custody. This is why some of the largest compounding pharmacies and CDMOs in the country rely on us for their raw materials. You don't have to guess where your API came from. With us, you know. Now, if you're a medical provider watching this, I need to speak with you directly for a moment. There are still providers out there sourcing peptides from the gray market, buying directly from China through middlemen with no licensed supply chain in between. If you're doing that, you need to be extremely careful because enforcement is catching up fast. In 2026, a licensed physician in Utah was federally indicted. He was charged for receiving misbranded drugs from China and selling them to his patients. According to these allegations, the physician obtained peptides he knew were not FDA approved, including tirzepatide, semaglutide, retatrutide, BPC 157, and more. He purchased them through a middleman at deeply discounted prices with no proper testing or clinical validation behind them. He slapped his own labels on the vials before handing them out to clinical staff. The labels didn't disclose the manufacturer, packer, or distributor, which is a requirement. He allegedly sold these products to over 200 patients. This is a licensed physician, a medical professional with a real practice and real patients, and now this guy is facing serious legal troubles. He likely could have avoided this mess if he sourced his peptides from a pharmacy instead of an unregulated Chinese lab. He took a shortcut trying to maximize profit margins at the expense of patient safety, and now he's paying the price. The gray market is not so gray area anymore, it's radioactive. And while yes, this situation is scary, you shouldn't let it prevent you from offering peptides as long as you're doing it the right way. Look, if you're a provider that needs help sourcing peptides through a legitimate regulated supply chain, I've got you covered. Head down to the description of this video, you'll see a link to schedule a call with me. I'll connect you with a licensed sterile compounding pharmacy that produces popular peptides and other medications that you're likely searching for. Alright, so I think it's time to wrap things up. I did my best to articulate the difference between pharma-grade and research-grade API and how regulated supply chains are key. If you're a provider or involved in pharmacy operations, you need to put a big emphasis on your due diligence. Remember, you either have a medication or you have a chemical. What separates the two is the supply chain behind it. Now, if you're interested in sourcing API, pharma-grade peptides, or telemedicine technology, head down to the description of this video. You'll find a link to my site where you can learn more about the solutions we offer, and you can schedule a call directly with me. I appreciate you watching this video till the end, and I'll see you in the next one.